3 Bravo EVA2 will begin at the Quest airlock. Mr. Bob Behnken, EV1 will egress first. Mr. Chris Cassidy, EV2 will egress second with an ORU bag. After completing buddy checks, Bob will lead out to the worksite. Crew will translate up the CETA spur, outboard of the solar upper rotary joint to S6, and drop a tether fair lead. Bob will then prep his IEA foot restraint for battery operations. Chris will start his day at the external pallet foot restraint. After verifying settings, Chris will stow an ORU bag on the external pallet and prep a pistol grip tool with a 9/8 hex driver for future adapter plate operations. Meanwhile, back at the IEA, Bob is setting up 3 Bravo for battery operations by relocating a PGT near Battery 4. Once complete, Chris will join Bob on the IEA. Chris will hand Bob a ratchet wrench to break torque on nickel hydrogen battery number 4. Once complete, Chris will hand Bob a PGT with a 6-inch wobble and begin to fully release battery 4 by driving H1 followed by H2. Bob will then release the old nickel hydrogen battery 4 from soft dock and hand it to Chris. Bob will egress the foot restraint and both crew will interim battery 4 to the external pallet. At the EP, Chris will ingress the foot restraint and Bob will hand Chris the battery and he will stow it on his BRT. Bob will translate onto the external pallet and help Chris release adapter plate Echo. Using a ratchet wrench with hex driver, crew will break torque on both bolts. Bob will then hand Chris a PGT with a hex driver, and he will continue to fully release the adapter plate by driving H1 followed by H2. Once Bob stows the PGT, he will translate back to the truss. Chris will release adapter plate Echo from soft dock and hand it to Bob, who will begin translation back to the 3 Bravo IEA. Chris will install the old nickel hydrogen battery 4 into slot Echo by driving H2 with full torque. Chris will then retrieve 2 scoop handling aids and relocate them to lithium-ion battery Charlie for future operations. Chris will then translate back to the truss. Once far enough away, the Canadian arm will reposition to expose battery Charlie to crew for later operations. Back at the IEA, Bob ingressed the foot restraint and began to install the adapter plate Echo into slot 4. During the time, Chris will return to the IEA and relocate handling aids for the next battery, battery 6. Once complete with the adapter plate bolts, a connector will be installed from the adapter plate to the lithium-ion battery, completing the circuitry for battery charging and discharging. The crew will then break into the last pair of nickel hydrogen batteries on the IEA. Torque will be broken on battery 6 with a ratchet wrench. Then both bolts will be fully released with a PGT, H1, followed by H2. Battery 6 will then be released from soft dock, handed to Chris, and Bob will rotate his foot restraint over adapter plate Echo and then soft dock the nickel hydrogen battery. Bob will drive H2 followed by H1 to secure battery 6 in its final stow position on top of adapter plate Echo. Bob will then egress the APFR, rotate, and then relocate 2 handling aids and prep for battery 5. Bob will then translate out to the external pallet to assist Chris with battery Charlie. During that time, Chris was working to release battery Charlie from the external pallet. He will hand battery Charlie to Bob and both will interim back to the IEA. Bob will ingress the foot restraint and install battery Charlie into slot 6. Bob will drive H2 followed by H1, completing battery Charlie install. Bob will egress and relocate and reposition the APFR for battery 5 operations. Bob will re-ingress the APFR, and Chris will hand Bob a ratchet wrench to break torque on the battery 5 bolts. He will then fully release the bolts, H1, followed by H2, using a PGT with a 6-inch wobble. Bob will then remove battery 5 from soft dock, hand it to Chris, and both will interim back to the external pallet. At the EP, Chris will ingress the foot restraint and install the battery on his body restraint tether. Bob will translate back onto the external pallet to assist Chris in releasing adapter plate Charlie. Using a hex driver, crew will break torque and then use a PGT with the hex driver to fully release the adapter plate. Bob will reposition back to the truss. Chris will hand the adapter plate to Bob, and Bob will begin translation back to the 3 Bravo IEA. Chris will remain behind and install the old nickel hydrogen battery 5 into slot Echo. Chris will then clean up the 2 scoops and PGT in the medium ORU bag, and then bundle it to the EP foot restraint. Back at the IEA, Bob will ingress the foot restraint and install adapter plate Charlie into slot 5. fully driving H2 and H1 to torque with the PGT and hex driver. Once complete, a connector will be installed from the adapter plate to the lithium-ion battery, completing the 3 Bravo circuitry for battery charging and discharging. Crew will then work together to clean up the IEA. 4 scoops and 2 gap spanner pairs will be gathered into the crew lock bag. PGT will be stowed on Bob's swing arm. Bob will then retrieve the crew lock bag and bundle it to the IEA foot restraints. Both crew will grab foot restraints and stow them on their BRTs. Crew will then begin to translate inboard. Chris will lead. Bob will stop at the starboard cedar cart with 5 for final stowage of his foot restraint. Chris will continue on and translate all the way to ESP2 with 4 for his final location. Once complete, Chris will grab his ORU bag, head back toward the airlock, but will continue up the Cetus Spur to grab a couple of adjustable tether fair leads. These were used to keep the tether out of the way for ingress throughout the entire series of these battery EVAs. Crew will meet back up at the airlock, stow their bags, and ingress the airlock. And this concludes the nominal task plan for US 3 Bravo EVA2.